In this video, I'll be explaining week by week the training plan that I followed in order to run my first marathon in 3 hours and 52 minutes. Let's go. In the beginning of 2020, I prepared and ran my first ever marathon, and it was such a transformative experience that it actually triggered these YouTube channels and just this willingness from me to investigate more about running and try to create content about it. The experience was quite a bit of a roller coaster, with my target marathon being cancelled because of COVID, then having to adapt the training plan and eventually run it on my own. But this is only material for another video. But today what we're gonna do is talk about the training plan that I followed during 14 weeks. First, I want to say that I am not a running coach. I've never gotten any certification from any peer-reviewed examination, any institution or anything like that. All I'm giving here is a testimony of what I did in order to run my first marathon. By all means, do your own research. Don't trust random people on the internet just like this. Take the information, study it, make it yours, compare it to others, and then make your own opinions and beliefs about which training you should be following. After looking at loads of training plans on the internet, I actually realized that for a first marathon, pretty much all of those plans were good plans. And just to be clear, I'm talking here to an average runner. When you are at this intermediary level of running, pretty much any marathon plan that you will find is going to make you run 3, 4, maybe 5 times a week, which in my case was something that I'd never done before. And in that respect, I think that pretty much all marathon plans would be good for that. In my case, I've decided to take one from my mother-in-law, who has run dozens of marathons. She has run New York Marathon, Paris, Prague, and many more that I wish to run one day. So I decided to borrow her training plan and make it mine. That is why I would say that although this marathon plan might not be backed by a certified coach, it is backed by lots of years of experience, not mine, but hers. And therefore, I'm pretty confident that it can help tons of people to run their first marathon. So before we dive into week by week detailing exactly which training you should do, let's talk about the main points of this marathon training plan. I apologize as I realize that this is going to be quite of a lengthy video, but this is the price to pay in order to go in detail week by week for all sessions, explaining them really in details. By all means, if you want to jump into a specific week, all the timestamps are in the description, so feel free to use them. Point number 1, this marathon is very much based on speed work, meaning that you'll probably spend less time on the run than with other marathon plans. For instance, I don't have crazy long runs on the weekend. I don't have ramping up distance all the way to 32, 34, 36 kilometers, approaching to the 42 kilometer. I think the maximum distance that I ever ran in my preparation was just around 28 kilometers, so that was actually below 20 miles. Personally, I think that focusing on speed work gives you a better resistance to the level of intensity that you're going to be facing during the marathon. And although maybe you haven't trained your body to be that long on the run, you've trained your body to resist to very hard endurance running. That is why in this training plan, you will not find any long runs, but you will find sprints, intervals, tempo runs, because this was my approach to my first marathon. Also, it has a benefit of reducing the amount of time you spend running, which when you start training for your first marathon could be a big bump. If you're used to run 2 hours a week, you're going to have to now run maybe 3, 4, even more for certain weeks. And that could be really hard to manage if you have a busy life like we all have. Also, I wanted this training plan to be easy to follow and not require any specific fancy material. That's why there is no mention of training by heart zone or measuring heartbeats at any point. Everything you'll be doing will be based on speed. You'll have to follow different paces. That is to ensure that anyone can follow this training plan with a smartphone, purely using the Strava recorder. The only thing you have to be able to do is to know the pace that you're currently running at and be able to measure the distance and the time. That's all. Also, for the whole programs, what I only give you is the different sessions that you should do in a week, but I don't actually time them. I don't tell you to do this on Monday, nothing on Tuesday, and this on Wednesday. I only tell you, okay, those are the 5 sessions for this week, and you can arrange your agenda as you please. Except for the 2 last taper weeks where you have to actually rest, and you have to be a little more strategic about the timing of how you rest and train a little bit in order to be ready for the D-Day. But apart from those 2 weeks, you can basically arrange your agenda as you like with all those sessions. Obviously, you need to be smart about it and try to put the rest days just after the harder sessions, but at least it gives you a lot of leeways and margin in order to adapt your agenda around the training plan. Before we start looking at individual session, the only thing that we have to compute, and sorry, we have to do a bit of math here, are 4 different paces that you will have to remember when you're preparing your sessions. First one is easy, it's your marathon pace. So right now, I'm guessing you already have an idea of how fast you want to be running your marathon. If you don't, you can try to do a bit of research based on your previous performances, your 10K, half marathon. Try maybe to double your best half marathon time and add like 10 to 15 minutes depending on your level, maybe even half an hour if you want to be more conservative. conservative. Those are only rough measurements, and you might want to aim at doing better than this average rule. But overall, you gotta have an idea of what will be the time that you want to finish this marathon in, and therefore you'll be determining the pace that you need to run during those 26.2 miles or 42.2 kilometers in order to achieve this time during the marathon. Once you have your marathon pace, all the training will be based on percentages of this marathon pace, and therefore we'll have 3 other paces. One will be low, medium, and high. Low is basically taking 15% less than your marathon pace. That will be the pace that you will be running in between intervals in order to recover for the next one. Then you have medium, which is 10% above marathon pace. So that's where you're gonna have to work a little bit on pushing yourself a little faster in order to make marathon pace appear a lot easier. That is going to be one of the main strategies in this plan, and that's why there's a lot of speed work, is because every time you're doing a speed work, it's gonna be extremely hard on your body. It's kind of like running with weight on your shoulders. Like, it's gonna feel hard, but then when you take the weight off and you only run at your marathon pace, everything seems a lot easier. That is kind of the magic of the speed work. At least that's how I felt during this first marathon. And then we have the high speed, which is 20% above your marathon speed. So low is 15% below marathon speed, medium is 10% above, and high is 20% above. So once you have determined your marathon speed, you're able to determine the 3 others. Let's take a quick example, and sorry, I'm gonna be reading my notes there because there are a lot of numbers. But basically, if you're trying to run a marathon in 4 hours, your speed therefore is 10.6 kilometers or 6.6 miles an hour, which means a pace of 5 minutes and 41 seconds per kilometer or 9 minutes and 10 seconds per mile. That is the pace you have to do during the 26.2 miles or the 42.2 kilometers. And therefore, when you have this pace, you can determine that low speed would be 6 minutes 30 seconds per kilometers and 10 minutes 33 seconds per mile. Then medium speed would be 5 minutes and 7 seconds per kilometers or 8 minutes and 50 seconds per mile. And high speed is going to be 4 minutes and 33 seconds per kilometers or 7 minutes 20 seconds per mile. Sorry for all the numbers. It's just to put things in perspective. If you want, I'll put a link to a calculator that can allow you to do all those calculations very easily. Of course, those speeds are not carved in stones. If you want to adapt a little bit, there is no mathematical formula that says that low speed should be 50% and not 10% below marathon speed. This is only the idea that you're going to be training at those 4 different speeds, and that's roughly where they should be at. Now that we have determined this, let's dive into the week by week planning. Week 1 is the wake up week. I call it wake up because in my case, it was the first week of my life that I was running 4 times in a single week. That is why the idea is just to get familiar with the fact that for the next 14 weeks, you are going to be training 4 or 5 times every week, and your body needs to get used to it. First session of the week is an easy 1-hour run at marathon pace. This is also a good test. If this 1 hour at marathon pace is already very challenging for you, maybe you've chosen the too challenging marathon pace. And if on the other hand, it's really easy and you could have done like 2 or 3 hours of that, then maybe you can up your pace a little bit and try to challenge yourself a little more. Then another hour of running, but this time you're going to be running 55 minutes at marathon pace, and you're going to be running those 5 last minutes at your high speed. Third session, 1 hour and 10 minutes marathon pace. And then again, for the 4th session, we repeat kind of the same principle as session number 2, but this time you do 50 minutes at marathon pace and 10 minutes at high pace. You'll see those 10 minutes at high pace, the first time you're doing it, it's not that easy. Moving on to week 2, which is kind of the warming up week. Another 4 session in this week. Basically a repetition from the first week, but with slightly increased running time. First run is 1 hour and 20 minutes marathon pace. Second run is 1 hour and 10 minutes, but 40 minutes at marathon pace and 30 minutes at medium pace. Third run is the repetition from last week, 4th run, so 50 minutes at marathon pace and 10 minutes at high pace. Hopefully between the 4th run of week 1 and the 3rd run of week 2, you've seen some improvements, and the 10 last minutes were a little more manageable for you. And then you end the week with a nice 50 minutes at marathon pace. Third week is the moment to cheer up. You've already survived to 2 weeks of training, so congratulations for that. And now again, same type of week as 1 and 2. You start with 30-minute marathon pace plus 40 minutes at medium pace. Then an hour and 20 minutes of marathon pace. Third run is a bit tougher. 1 hour marathon pace plus 15 minutes of high pace. Believe me, you're gonna feel this one. But bear in mind, every time you run at high pace, you're training your body to overcome a lot more intensity than you will have to manage when you are at marathon pace. Therefore, making your body a lot more resistant, building the stamina and the endurance you will need to finish your marathon. Then we finish the week with a 1 hour run at marathon pace. Okay, so now we've done 3 weeks. Therefore, it's time for a slow down week. where we're trying to re-energize our body a little bit to move on for the next ones. So for all those slow downs week, you only have 3 runs during the week. It doesn't mean that they're gonna be easy runs, but it's only 3. So you have more rest days during the week than you have running days, which will help you a lot to recover and push on even more in the next week. So we start with a 1 hour and 30 minutes marathon pace. Again, you see we are building a little bit this running time at marathon pace so that it becomes easier and easier for you to be at this speed. Then we start the first hard training, the intervals. This first interval is going to be 6 times 1 kilometers or 0.7 miles at high speed, each of them followed by 3 minutes of low speed running. I also give you the figure of 1 hour and 10 minutes. The only reason I give this figure is because I don't want people to overdo and run longer than they should. So the whole session should not take you more than 1 hour and 10 minutes. And this includes the warm-up that you'll have to do. So try to include maybe 10 minutes of warm-up before you start the intervals. Please don't start them right away. That is not the good way to train. Starting high speed straight from home. Please do at least 10 minutes of warm-up. Once the warm-up is done, then you start doing your first 1 kilometer at high speed. Once you're done with 1 kilometer, you just stop and you pursue with low speed for 3 minutes, and then 1 kilometer at high speed, and so on and so on. If you've done 10 minutes of warming up, you should end up with 5 to 15 minutes remaining in your 1 hour and 10 minutes total time just to do a warm down. That's where you can just run slowly, maybe walk a little bit, just try to recover from those intervals. You will see if it's the first time you're doing intervals, which was my case when I started my first marathon training, it was kind of hard, and you're kind of glad that those intervals are only 1 kilometer long. Then we finished the week with a peaceful 45 minutes marathon pace run, easy peasy. Week 5, let's go. First session is also an interval training, but this one is a slightly different form because it's going to be some sort of inverse pyramid intensity training, so to say. So you're gonna warm up for 10-15 minutes, then you're gonna be doing 3 minutes at high speed with 1 minute and a half at low speed, then 2 minutes at high speed and 1 minute and 15 seconds at low speed, and then 1 minute, and then back up again. So 2 minutes of high speed and 1 minute and 15 seconds at low speed, and back again to 3 minutes at high speed and 1 minute and 30 seconds at low speed. So basically you went 3, 2, 1, 2, 3. You will see the last intervals are quite hard. But overall, this session is going to be quite a short one. And believe me, you're progressing a lot on your speed when you're doing this. Always include 10 minutes of warming up and at least 10 minutes of slow down, very low intensity run, even walking if you want. Second run is 1 hour at marathon pace. Third run is 45 minutes at marathon pace plus 30 minutes at medium pace. And the fourth run, this is the hard moment of your week. Here comes the sprints. Those ones are gonna hurt, I'm not gonna lie, but be glad you're only at week 5. Those are 20-second sprints. When you're gonna see the 30-second sprints, I can see you coming. Oh, it's only 10 seconds more. Believe me, 10 seconds of sprints is a lot. So anyway, here we have 15 sprints of 20 seconds, each followed by 20 seconds of walking. And I put here a total time of 40 minutes. So try to not go over that, meaning that don't take too much resting time. If not, the sprints are not as efficient as they should. Even if you see your speed declining, it will decline. No way around that. There's no way your 15th sprint is faster than the first one, or it means that you didn't go all in on the first one. Because yes, none of the 4 speed we defined before applies to sprints. Sprint is all out. You give everything you can for 20 seconds. Don't try to hold back or think, oh, I have 14 more to do after that. This is not how sprint works. It's the Olympics. It's the final. You gotta make this one run count. You go all in and again and again and again for 15 times. Week 6 is the 6th to get on. We start with a run with 4 intervals of 2 kilometers at high speed, each followed by 4 minutes at low speed. The total duration of the session should be in 1 hour and 20 minutes. So again, take some time for warming up and take some time for slowing down afterward. Then second session is 1 hour and 10 minutes at marathon pace. Third session is 1 hour at marathon pace plus 30 minutes at medium pace. Again, you see those numbers increasing a little bit each week. And here they are. I mentioned them before, the 30 seconds sprints. Believe me, those are gonna hurt, but it's for your own good, so enjoy that. So it's gonna be 12 of them, 30-second sprints, each followed by 30 seconds walking. Try to actually walk during this time and not just stay static. It'll help at least get rid of a little bit of the acid lactate that builds up in your muscles. Even though, as I said, there are sprints, they're gonna hurt. You just have to go through with it. Then week 7 is the week to cool off. We just did 2 very hard weeks of training, so now we're gonna try to pace ourselves a little bit, recover as much as possible, and be ready for the next 2 hard weeks of work. This week starts with 1 1 hour run at marathon pace. By that point, you should be quite used to it, and this would feel like an easy run. Then another hard training of 12 sprints, exactly like you did for the last session of the previous week, number 6. 12 sprints of 30 seconds with 30 seconds of walking in between. Try to keep the whole session less than 40 minutes. Again, take some time to warm up before the sprints and cool down after. Then you're finishing the week with what people call sometimes tempo runs. I call it best performances because it's basically trying to run a 10K as fast as you can. This is a really good time, for instance, if you can actually register for a race, if the agenda magically match and you find a race on week 7, that would be a terrific way to prep. Try to go as fast as possible, do the best strategy you can in order to get the best performance out of this. Before we start week 8, I want to congratulate you. You've already done half of the training. This is a huge achievement on its own. You've been running now for a month and a half. You've completed 7 weeks or 4 or 3 trainings every week. This is incredible, so be really proud of yourself to have come that far. Now, week 8 and 9 are also hard weeks. We start week 8 with 1 hour and 50 minutes at marathon speed, then another interval session of 5 times 2 kilometers at high speed, each followed by 3 minutes at low speed. Third session is 1 hour and 30 minutes at marathon pace. Then we're going again to another interval session, but a decreasing one this time. So you're going to be warming up for 10 minutes, then you're going to be going for 6 minutes at high speed, followed by 3 minutes at low speed. And then it's going to be 4 minutes at high speed, 2 minutes and 30 seconds at low speed, and 3 minutes at high speed, 1 minute and 30 seconds at low speed, 2 minutes at high speed, 1 minute and 50 seconds at low speed, and then 1 minute, 1 minute. The worst thing here is that the intensity is decreasing, but so is your energy during this session. Therefore, it's going to look very weird when you're going to realize that the 1 minute at the end at high speed is going to feel as hard as the 6 minutes that you did in the beginning of the session. Week 9, we go forward one more step. We start with an easy 1 hour marathon speed, then move on to a sprint session, 12 sprints of 20 seconds each, always followed by 20 seconds of walking. Then we move on to a really intense interval training of 10 times 1 kilometer at high speed, followed by 1 minute and 30 seconds of low speed. This is a very short time at low speed to recover, and it's a big amount of intervals, so this one is really a hard session. Then we end the week on 1 hour and 40 minutes at marathon pace. Week 10 is where we ease off a little bit, especially because week 11 and 12 are the hardest week of this marathon training. So this week we're going to be running 55 minutes at marathon pace plus a 15 minute at high pace for the first session. Then we're going to move on to an interval session of 5 times 10 minutes at high speed. Be careful, usually we count high speed in terms of kilometers, but now it's about minutes. So you're going to have to endure 5 times of high speed for 10 minutes with 3 minutes of low speed in between each intervals. And we end the week with an easy 1 hour and 20 minutes marathon pace. Hopefully at the end of week 10 you have recovered and you get some energy to move on to week 11 and 12, which are the hardest ones. Week 11 is where we strive. Both week 11 and 12 have 5 training during the week. Personally, I try to always leave Sunday as a rest day, meaning that for the 6 days from Monday to Saturday, there's going to be only 1 rest day. So make sure you always put it after the hardest session, because you're not going to have the luxury of being able to take a rest day every time you're tired. First session is an interval session. You're going to be running 4 times a 3 kilometers interval of high speed, each followed by 2 minutes at low speed. Those 3 kilometers interval are going to feel really long, and this is one of the hardest sessions, but you're going to be making tons of progress, believe me. On the plan, I also put the timing for warming up that needs to be more consequent this time, so more like 30 minutes and then 15 minutes maybe of stretching. Here I mean dynamic stretching. I want to see no one sitting and doing static stretching before going at it and running 3 kilometers at a high pace. So this is dynamic stretching while you're warming up. Make sure that all your joints are ready and you're ready for this very hard session. Then run 2 is 1 hour and 20 minutes at marathon pace. Session 3 is 20 sprints of 30 seconds each, all followed by 30 seconds of walking. Then we're moving on to the 4th session, which is sort of like interval pyramid training, where you're going to be going at high speed for 5 minutes, 8 minutes, 11 minutes, 14 minutes, and then 11, 8, 5 again. Each of them followed by 1 minute and 30 seconds of low speed. So this is very short time to recover at low speed and very long time at high speed. So a really, really, really hard one. Come on, I'm rooting for you. Then you're gonna end the week on a 50-minute marathon pace. Moving on to week 12, it's the week where we power through because it's the hardest one of the whole training plan. We're going to do an interval training of 6 times 3 kilometers at high speed with only 2 minutes of low speed in between each. Very hard session, and probably the hardest one that you will do for the whole all 14 weeks of training. This session was actually pretty funny for me because I never tried to really do a PB on my half marathon, and I never really worked on my speed before I trained for my first marathon. And actually, by doing this interval training, even though sometimes I was running at low speed, as you should in between the intervals, I ended up making a PB on half marathon. This is just to say that during those 11 prior weeks, my speed increased a lot, and I was a lot faster than I was before I started this training, to the point that even if I was really not going for half marathon PB, I mean, it's not a good way to do a PB with intervals and low speed in between. That makes no sense for a PB. I still ended up making a PB on half marathon. This is to say how much you improve your speed when you're actually really working at it with sprints, intervals, tempo run, etc. Then again, we're gonna go for a 10K best performance. Try to beat your last performance at the end of the week 7. Then an easy run of 1 hour at marathon speed. Fourth session of the week is also one of the hardest, honestly. It's 25 sprints of 30 seconds with each 30 seconds of walking in between. And then we finish with an interval training with decreasing length of intervals, starting at 20, then 16, 12, 8, and 4 minutes at high speed, each followed by a 2 minute at low speed to recover. And this is it. You've done the hardest week of the marathon training plan. You now are entering into week 13 and 14, where you're gonna taper, where you're gonna basically start resting a little more and intensely prepare for the D-Day that is only 14 days from now on. For week 13 and 14, I ventured a guess regarding when you should be putting your session in the week. I usually don't want to do that because everybody has a busy agenda, but since you're starting to get close to the D-Day, timing starts to be sort of important, so try to fit to this timing. Monday is just 30 minutes marathon pace plus 30 minutes at medium pace, resting on Tuesday, and on Wednesday it's a 1 hour at low speed. Thursday, 2 intervals of 2 kilometers at high speed, each followed by 5 minutes at low speed. You can see here that you're not trying to force a lot on the speed, just try to remind your muscle a little bit about what it is to running fast, but without exhausting them. Then Friday is a rest. Saturday, 50 minutes at very low speed. Moving on to Sunday, where you're gonna try to do a best performance on 15 kilometers. Again, if you can find a race that does 15 kilometers, that would be ideal. If not, just run it on your own, but just try to get a PB on 15K. Then, last but not least, week 40. Monday is gonna be a slow 45 minutes at low speed. Tuesday is a bit of interval, 2 intervals of 3 kilometers at high speed, each followed by 10 minutes at low speed. Again, trying to remember your muscle, what it is to run fast, but without getting tired. And resting on Wednesday, easy 40 minutes run at low speed on Thursday. Resting on Friday, 30 minutes at low speed on Saturday, just as a pre-warmer for the D-Day, which is Sunday, running a marathon. That's it, guys. By all means, if you have any question about this, put it in the comments. I'll answer individually to all of you, and I'll try to give you the best of my knowledge to make sure that you achieve your first marathon too. Regarding the classic audiobook recommendation that I'm always doing now, funny thing is that on week 2 of my first marathon training is the first time I ever ran while listening to an audiobook. I usually only listen to podcasts or music, but when I started to listening to an audiobook, I realized how much I enjoyed it and that I didn't want it to go back to music or podcast. So my recommendation today is going to be the first audiobook I've ever listened to, and that was during week 2 of this marathon training plan. The book is called Jog On by Bella Mackie. It's an extraordinary book. She explains how she's coping anxiety and depression thanks to running. It's really cool to read it, but it's even better to listen to while running. The reason for that is that Bella Mackie is the one who actually recorded her own audiobook. So when you are listening to the audiobook, you're not listening to just any people narrating the book. You're listening to the author herself about her personal experience of running, which to me is unbeatable. One of the best audiobooks I've ever listened to while running. As always, there will be a link in the description if you want to try. I believe there is still a 1 month free of charge on Audible so that you can try it and then just cancel the subscription if you didn't like it, but I'm ready to bet that you will. Now, I always try to put some link in Strava in case you are a running nerd like me who like to go and analyze the runs of other people there, but unfortunately I cannot link to all the activities I did during my marathon training. That would be way too long, so I'll just link a couple of them, but feel free to go through all my Strava. I name all of them based on which week and which training of this week it was. Hopefully it will help you to accomplish your first marathon goal. If you know anyone who's also trying to prepare for her or his first marathon, feel free to share this video to them. Also, all the usual, if you got any values out of this video, please give it a thumbs up and maybe consider subscribing and clicking the notification bell so that you get notified every time a new video comes out. I'm doing 2 videos a week, Monday and Thursday, sometimes a Wednesday, mainly about running, fitness and health. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and until next time. Bye.